So good afternoon, everybody. Last year, if you were here at YMS, you may have heard me talk about poor little lambs, the most hated generation. A generation of snowflakes that were criticised for being overly narcissistic, obsessed with fame and followers, self-entitled, lazy, tough to manage, and no resilience. Probably the most popular slide of my whole presentation was when I turned around and in capital letters said, "It's bollocks. It's not true. This is not who they are." But in the wake of the EU referendum, that's what the popular media lambasted them for moaning about Brexit, but never turning out to vote. We told you they're engaged in politics. Politicians, not so much. But things changed. And our little lambs became lions. It was all changed towards the end of last year in June when they turned out to vote in the general election. It was the greatest share of 18 to 24-year-olds that have voted since 1992, bringing them back in line with older age groups. It kind of enforced to us that flawed is the new flawless. What was the basis of Corbyn's success? Why did they turn out to vote? And what we know is that young people respond to real people, not idolised and sanitised versions of reality. And there had been a perception that Corbyn wasn't published enough, that he couldn't connect with this audience because he wasn't slick and he didn't conform in the right way. But actually his policies spoke to young people. He met them where they were. And to think that the youth would never recognise that was extremely naive. We know for youth marketing requires authenticity and honesty. And in a world of increased anxiety and perfection basically fails to resonate and actively alienates young people. This is a generation of sharers and it's a generation of talkers. They're using tech to connect, share, find like-minded humans, become part of a tribe to make change, to make decisions, to consume media that makes them actually normalize how they're feeling and help them to make decisions that are important for them. They're also making meaningful online relationships, and they're seeking out platforms where they can actually be themselves and express themselves in a way that feels good for them. So in a time of mass anxiety, they're seeking comfort online and companionship outside of their local circle. And we know that authenticity is reassuring and it's empowering to millennials, and it basically makes them, we have to make sure that we're empathizing with their vulnerabilities, their imperfections, and their insecurities. So, how can you mobilize your audience and inspire engagement, interaction, and loyalty through honesty? And of course, how do you get back those goosebumps? Youth marketing is shifting from just placing a brand in front of a young person. It's moving towards creating that emotional resonance. And it's about talking about and reflecting on the issues that they face and that they are concerned with. However, it is a potential minefield. Young people can smell inauthenticity a mile off. So how can you identify and enter areas where you can participate with absolute integrity? As a marketeer, you need to identify your own mission, whether that's finding a cause that you can make a difference in, or whether that's an audience that you simply want to champion. You have to stay true to yourself, and whatever you do, you cannot sacrifice your principles for your product, like Pepsi did. This ad got taken down about 3 days after it was released. When there is so much conflict in the world, it felt extremely misguided and inappropriate. Pepsi put themselves in a space that they simply didn't belong, that didn't connect, and that they really had no right to be in. Sure, she has 88 million Instagram followers. But again, it was naive to think that even Kendall Jenner with a can of Pepsi could solve world conflict. So a can of soft drink cannot do that. And it was naive and patronizing to the audience. And that's the thing. We all know, or we'd like to think we know, that this generation isn't stupid. World conflict cannot be solved through one can of drink, let alone a whole truck of Pepsi. They're also adding nothing to the conversation. They're not challenging the narrative. And they're certainly not changing lives. Then we have LabBible. You expect the banter, they threw memes around for fun. Everyone loves LabBible. This isn't necessarily a campaign, but this is a reminder of what it is to be human. And this in itself, it was the mistake that LabBible made that made it a campaign. How you behave is powerful, and the words that you say can literally create a spell, it can create a curse, it can invoke real emotion, it can empower, and it can make change. LabBible reminded us of how our actions can really affect others. But the great story about this is that LabBible made it right, and they made a poignant and public apology. When they talked about Wentworth Miller and they actually realized the impact, and when Wentworth Miller actually explained what he'd been going through, they held their hands up to what they had done. They listened to their audience, they owned it, they reached out, and they acted like a human being. And in a world where some still think that it's okay to dehumanize celebrities and people, LabBible saw that they went too far and they made a change. It reminds us that as marketeers, we have accountability. We have to be human first, job role second. Probably one of my favorites, Cards Against Humanity. Cards Against Humanity one day bought land on the Mexican border, and in doing that, received 150,000 subscriptions in one day. It was a bold, revolutionary, attention-grabbing moment. And while many of us felt powerless about what Trump wanted to do, many of us felt lost, emotional, angry. This is what Cards Against Humanity do. Ironically, a game that says that it's against humanity actually stuck up for humanity. And you think, well, what does this have to do with their ethos? Why stand in this space? When you think about what Cards Against Humanity actually is, it is a game. And what is the purpose of a game? It's to bring people together. And that's exactly what the wall aims to destroy. It aims to divide. So what Cards Against Humanity was saying is, not in this space. We want to bring people together. No more division, no more divisiveness. This is not okay. Revenge porn and Facebook. Here, Facebook placed themselves at the center of a social issue that affects this generation like nobody else. They said that they would hash nude photos to stop their platform from indirectly hosting the problem. It's here that they're demonstrating that they hear the challenges of the young people that are using what they provide, and they're boldly standing on the side of their users and trying to do something within the realms of what they do to protect young people. We have Misguided versus Perfection, and their campaign, Keep Being You. Again, further proof that flawed is the new flawless. In their word, babes to love themselves for themselves, embrace their flaws, not to strive for what the world perceives as perfection. ASOS also embraced this concept with talking about untouched photos and stretch marks, and both gained huge amounts of traction with youth customers who then went on to social media to talk about the fact that natural is normal. Snapchat versus bullying. Snapchat here partnered with Vodafone to create the Be Strong campaign, and they pitched it at just the right time as part of Anti-Bullying Week, something that is hugely prevalent in the life of a young person, and they saw that how it would connect with their audience, with those that are using Snapchat. So they basically created bespoke filters to raise awareness with the aim to spread positive interactions and connect young people. Revolt against sexual assault and the student room versus sexual violence. The Revolt movement is led by a university student called Hannah Price, and she encourages students to share their experience about sexual assault, harassment, and rape. She's bringing to life the stories and the raw, heart-wrenching implications behind the statistics that you see. Hannah encouraged young people to share these stories by using filters on Snapchat and vocal and facial obscuration to conceal identity so that they could speak bravely. This is clearly a serious issue that affects what we do, and as the student room, it affects our audience. We have a huge university audience. And so we partnered with them to produce research that would shed light on how widespread this issue actually is. We have an audience and a membership that trusts us and is willing to share their story for the greater good. And from this, it's become the biggest study to date, capturing 4,500 students from 153 institutions. 62% told us that they'd experienced sexual violence on campus. The coverage hit all of the major online publications, as well as ITV, BBC, Sky News, BBC Three, and magazines such as Cosmo and Elle. But more importantly, the findings will help Revolt continue with their mission to inform national and university policy and create social change for those that we aim to protect and see take on the world. The student room versus the tabloid coverage of Results Day. And this is a slightly more personal story. In 2017, last year, we saw a number of controversies around the A-level and GCSE grade boundaries following the exam reform. Naturally, certain areas of the media jumped on the story to paint young people as entitled, demanding, wanting something for free, and basically that they're thick. Results Day and that whole period of time is our busiest time to date, whether it's traffic to the site or whether it's commercially focused. But we had to stand up for students because no one else was. So we pushed out the last-minute campaign, spreading the message, "Be Results Proud." We got a survey of 5,000 students in about 24 hours, and they shared their story and the obstacles they faced about what they'd experienced throughout the exam reform period and the impact that that may or may not have had during their exams. This ultimately fed into our biggest results period to date. We've never had such a big A-level exam day, and we have more GCSE with students online than ever before. We challenged the narrative. We said it wasn't okay. We delivered this research and we shared it with the UK media, and it was everywhere on A-level results day because everyone wanted to hear the true story, not the story that was being peddled by the popular media about how young people aren't good enough and that they're failing. Students understood that we were fighting for them, they heard what we were saying, and they came online and they chose our platform to make important decisions about their big day. But the thing about all of this is that it is the raw emotion behind what fueled that campaign for me. Imagine the busiest week of your life in the workplace. You've got a million other things to do, and you just sit there for one moment. And I still remember the color of the sky and the anger I felt when I saw what the media was saying about our young people. Injustice and anger are the most powerful catalyst for change and to take action. And what the tabloids were saying was not okay. How can they continue to dehumanize a whole generation of young people? And I just thought, how dare you? How dare you do this? This has to stop. Basically, fuck you. But the thing is, it's not just me that thinks fuck you, who wants to challenge the narrative. Those other brands think it too. Misguided say on their website, fuck perfection, it doesn't exist. Perfect imperfections, out. And Facebook says, fuck you to revenge porn. Don't do this. Don't try this in my house. This is my platform. Don't think that you can go and devastate some woman's life because you want to put this kind of content on the web. And Cards Against Humanity say, fuck you to Trump. Don't you dare divide us. This is not okay. This is GenFu. Humans first. And as marketeers, we have a superpower. We can fuel Generation FU. A generation that sees the powers that be and actually thinks we can do better than this. We can actually make a difference. We're fed up. We're fed up with being put in a box. We're fed up of being labeled. Don't label me. Don't tell me what I can and can't be. I don't have to put up with this. I think if I tried, I could do it better than you. And in a world that seems dead set on dividing people, feeling like they're never going to be good enough, Generation FU is actually beginning to sit up and recognize that they have undeniable potential. They just need the security and the belief. We need to fuel the belief that they can actually do this, that they can be something, that they're not going to be divided, that they're not going to be told that they're failures, and that we're going to hold people to account. So, how do you get involved? How do you act with integrity? The magic formula is coherence and authenticity. And as a brand, how can you be a safe house? How can you create a two-way channel of trust through your campaigns, through what you stand for? How can you challenge the narrative to empower young people? You have to ask yourself honestly, does your brand really have their back? Do you as a human even have their back? Do you actually get it? Do you feel the challenges that they're feeling every day? Do you know? And if you do, how can you be the solution, or at least provide some of the solution so that they have something firm to stand on to make something of themselves? The brands that I've talked about have powerfully demonstrated that they care about young people, that they put themselves in the shoes of them and they feel the challenges, and they are taking responsibility for the things that they care about to create change and create connection. The thing is, you can't necessarily attribute a value to the campaigns, but when you are doing this, when you are taking action, you are marketing, you are telling the world who you are and what your brand believes in. Call time on bullshit. Your marketing, your mission, vision, and values, do they actually sit in a drawer? Do you know anything about them? When was the last time you dusted them off? And how do they relate to what you do? Do you really have a good sense of self as who you are as a marketeer and as a brand? What's your voice? Do you hear your voice? Do you get your moral obligation? Human first, job role second. Trust your gut. You have to walk in their shoes and do your research. If your own campaign is not giving you goosebumps, they're not going to get the goosebumps either. Don't do stuff you're not proud of. If you don't feel something, they definitely won't. Think about why you got into marketing. We talked about it in the office. Perhaps you just watched Mad Men and you thought, that looks cool. You wanted to create awesome, cool copy. You wanted to do all of this other cool stuff. You wanted to make a change. And then all of a sudden, you've got your head down in Google Analytics. You're drowning in CTRs. You're optimizing and talking about cheap programmatic like your life depends on it. And you're drowning in reporting and admin. And you're on this hamster wheel. And you're just being a human doing. And you don't even know where you're at anymore or why the hell you did it in the first place. And you just think, stop. Do your research, take a breath. Check in with the people that are actually talking about you. What does their life look like right now for them? And how can you support that with what you do? Why should they care about you? And tap into why they could and should care about you. Study humans and study yourself. What gives you a feeling? What makes you do something? What moves you to do something? You feeling something is going to be what sells. Instead of a call to action, think about it as a call to arms. Are you just getting them to click and consume? Is that all you're about? Or can you empower and inspire them and act and get them and fuel the momentum? Help them to realize that they do have this undeniable potential while building that absolute loyalty at the same time. The thing is, you really have to feel it. You have to feel it and you have to uncover the motivation to act. And then you have to get them to feel it. You have to feel it. You have to get them connected with what you're doing. Share their story, build momentum, get this tribe moving. And then you have to fight it. You've got to talk about it, and you've got to bring more people into the conversation. Influence. Your campaign ultimately has the power to change the conversation. It has the potential and the power to change lives. And it has the potential and the power to change this world. Thank you.